Okay, that makes sense.
Cool. So, with all that said, that sounds fun. Do you have a name for the game? Working title?
The
Anyway?
working title is Origin.
Origin? Okay, interesting.
It refers
Um,
to an origin event where people started getting superpowers. Yeah.
right, and besides, you also have axes, so every pair of axes has an origin too. So that's cool. We have then, that's kind of funny too. Can nobody has the luxury of being right at the center of any one of their pair of axes, right?
Right,
That's not that you don't get to do that.
right.
Um, so what I have here then is a notion. Let's take that game then,
Okay.
and I'm going to say that if I understand correctly, that it is currently a set of notes, computer files. Conceivably, a few people could sit down and play if they were able to handle the fact that every single thing they do is provisional.
Yeah,
So we're going to call that proto to alpha design.
yeah. I'm at the place where I think I finally figured out enough that I could write an alpha, but I have not yet written an
Right.
alpha.
And you know what? That's great. I mean, that's good. Um, and if you were to sit down with some people and play, you would at least get an idea of two things. One is whether the basic coloring up of play, the imaging. Remember, I talked about the inspiration cycle.
Hmm.
You would just get the idea if it catches fire for them.
Hmm.
You would probably start to see it. Some people would make a very generic character as kind of a sort of slow start, let's see where it goes kind of way.
Hmm.
Another person might get very inspired and make a very provocative character based on exactly the principles that you're offering. But either way, through the course of play, you would get an idea of whether people, are visualizing the
Right.
kind of things that you think of as the game promoting or facilitating. Whether the changes that they make in their characters start to, you see the inspirations going, and also part and parcel of that, you see whether people are even using the instrumentation that you're providing.
Right.
I have been in games, particularly at this stage, where a number of the people at the table, or at least one, doesn't want to use the instruments you're providing. They know how to play, and they're
Hmm.
going to do that. They're just not oriented toward getting the instruments of play and seeing what they do. But
Yeah.
if you're with people who are at least willing to try that, you can see whether the instruments are even grasped, whether they've picked them up, held them, and used them in any way that you recognize. Um, there are times when you try to explain what you have in mind and they do something, but the way that they talk, the way that they reach out to use a particular instrumentation of play just isn't making any sense to you or in
Right.
line of what you thought. So you can get a pretty good look about whether, at the most blunt sense, whether anybody cares about the events and the consequences of play,
Right.
and whether anybody utilizes the distinctive features that at the moment you felt like you made available to them.
Right.
Now, such play isn't intended to test whether the game can handle any situation, for example. Now, what's the point of that? You're going to put them into the optimum situations or make available to them whatever your role is in doing so, um, the situations that are the most relevant for the ideas of the game at
Right.
this stage. You're not going to say, all right, now let's see if this system can handle taking it completely off everything I want the game to be about.
Right.
And the same thing goes for the freedom of other people. You can say you can make up any kind of superpowers you want, and everybody goes, cool. And then you say, actually, now that I think about it, No, dial it down into these few parameters for purposes of this playtest. I need to keep that shit simple right now. I'm working on
Right.
this on these other things. So you can be as narrow or as broad as you want for different conceptual things about play in ways that really aren't constraining the game as a whole in the long run, but you need it to be nice and tight and focused for your purposes right now. Perhaps. So all that said, play of this kind shouldn't really be expected to sustain a solid session. Getting a few scenes back and forth, seeing whether numbers go up and down, seeing whether a trenchant moment of crisis can even be assessed by the characters or by the players and acted upon by the characters, and then something happens. Just seeing what happens with your resolution system of whatever it may be in terms of this person and that person trying to hit each other, and then what happens.
Yeah, that's the part where I'm most concerned with the instrumentation, because it's really kind of innovative and maybe probably won't work at the start. But so I'm concerned that people who are used to role playing games will just sort of take it in turn and fall into some sort of initiative order like they're used to.
Right. Well, in lots of ways, all you should really do is get together with, say, 2 or 3 other people and just do it. Play a character yourself if you must. If that's not allowed ordinarily, go ahead and do it. And you're really just noodling around.
Yeah.
You're not, okay, we're going to play this game so much as, hey, let's run a few things and see how they go and try, a couple of things. And everybody knows that you're basically playing off the back of a cocktail napkin.
Yeah.
And that's all right. I think that the way that I describe this, and I do it in a couple of my drafts, is that early playtesting is the mantra is make love, not war. You're there just to play with what the game has to offer, even if it's meager, even if it's sketchy or provisional. You're just there to touch it. You're just there to touch it and watch what systemically happens. And the only way to do that is to really love what you're imagining. Just throw yourself into it. You need to be with people who are just going to throw themselves into it. I've already got an image of the guy who power flies through the streets of Manhattan like that.
Right.
For your information. I know what his gauntlets look like.
Very cool.
You got to get with people who will do that. They'll say, yes, Plasma Lass, which if you think about it is a really cool sounding name. Plasma Lass is going to, I got her. Got her in my head, what can I do? What are these axes things? Oh, cool. By the way, how many axes do I get?
There are 4. You pick 3 points on the 3, and then 1 you're not particularly concerned with. You're kind of ambivalent.
Excellent. So I'll grab 3 of those, put myself, at the points, and I've got Plasma Lass pretty much ready to go. And then I say, well, wait a minute, how powerful is she? What does the game do for that? And whatever the answer is, you tell me, and I'm going to embrace it, because no matter what, I want everybody else to appreciate Plasma Lass in action or in interaction. And as long as I've kind of got that coolness in hand, as long as you have people there who say, no matter how well or badly this works, I'm going to bring that.
Right.
You told me this game was going to be about, one-armed orcs. Okay. For purposes of this evening, I am now in love with the idea of one-armed orcs, and I have one in mind. Let's go.
Right.
And so it takes that degree of interest. People aren't doing this. People at this stage, they're not doing this because they're interested in your game.
Right.
They're not doing this because they personally feel the need for a role-playing game to come out in a couple of years about this. They're doing this because they like you. They're doing this because they support your creativity and whatever ideas, they respect whatever ideas will be developing along the way.
Right.
In advance. They respect your ideas about it in advance.
Right.
And so they're going to jump in and they're going to grab the imagined material and they'll use whatever instrumentation is at hand that you provide to them, well or badly, and they'll use it to the best of their ability, which could be well or badly. And how it goes is just not their problem.
Right.
And that's really the kind of person you need playtesting for a while at first. And I would venture to say that such playtesting, or rather that anybody who playtests differently, you should avoid, assiduously, or, nod and smile as they give you all their advice.
Right.
Because they really aren't going to be helpful at this point.